Yeah, right there.
Just do it.
I was gonna leave it that way and let everybody just guess.
Oh, but this is the password. Oh, no.
Dr. Thorpe, are you okay?
I'm okay, I just don't have the vote yet on there.
It's okay.
Okay.
Is there a login just to get past the Windows screen?
See, I'm not, let's have this for you. Really?
It's USD 244.
Yeah.
Yours still on, this is still
No, he's good.
on. Oh, okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for amending minutes, and we should have a vote up now. There. Motion passes 6-0. Any other additions to the agenda? I didn't see anything, correspondence or anything, so we move on to the consent agenda. The second item,
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion and second for consent agenda. Everyone vote on your computer. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to public comment. Just I didn't see anybody sign in, no letters or anything. So we'll move on to written communications. Thank you letter everyone can click on there. Very positive feelings. Move on to administrative reports. Start with BDS.
Not much to report so far, just get ready for the new year.
Did more kindergartners sign up for the Jump Start after?
Yeah, we are, so we start tomorrow, and I wanna say we are at, I think there may have been a couple of phone calls, but last night we were at 25, which is a little over 50%, so, yeah.
Any other questions or comments, Darrell? Move on to Broken Middle School. Mr. Spree.
I would say enrollment went really well. Talking to Debbie, we missed about 30 kids that did not enroll. Some were on vacation that were already in contact. So it went well. We had a line for a little bit, so that was a little bit different.
Move on to Mr. Reed for North High School.
Same thing that Matt said, I thought enrollment went well. Things are moving along up there. I've heard a lot of the staff say thank you from the elementary to the middle school to high school on the retention bonuses. So thank you guys for that. And I know that the staff's very, very appreciative of that. So.
I know we got the numbers for enrollment broke out later in the superintendent's report, but I did notice that last year's freshman and this year's sophomore, there was a -12 difference. Is that, I don't know, that seemed like that was the biggest one throughout the district. Is that something that has Last year's numbers were preliminary numbers too, so I don't know if there's something we lost last year or any year.
What's the number there, I just, I can look at it.
Last year was 80, and this year's 68.
That group came in a lot lower than that, even to begin with, if I remember.
Oh, so 80 was high last year?
80 was a
Okay.
little higher, because that's what they had in junior high, about, no, it was like, gosh, if I remember right, it was somewhere around March or April or something, they dropped a little bit at that time, but we still kept, I kept it at that.
So that's almost like a
Yeah,
two-year
that number,
average.
but I expect that number to be, because it, you know, that group was pretty small at one time, that freshman group. It's the sophomore group that's pretty good size, I'm sorry, it's the sophomore group that's,
Yeah, that is a lower one. That's the 80,
yeah.
70.
Yeah. I'm expecting the numbers to be right kind of where I thought, unless, some changes, I think we had between 260 and 270. And, when I talked to Sue, it was 265, so I don't know about the whole district, but that's kind of where we were at. We had a bunch of girls, we had quite a few girls enrolled, new students, we had like 7 or 8 new girls. Yeah.
I just looked at the year-over-year numbers, and that was the big step I saw. So everything else was 4 down, 1, whatever, but seeing a 12 was stuck out. So, any other questions for high school? We want a special ed report? Staffing?
I say my biggest thing, I feel like I always talk about staffing. Good news is certified staff, we have all positions filled, creatively but filled. Para staff, I think I put in there, we started at like 21 openings, down to, I don't know, 6, 8, somewhere in there, but I have a couple up north that are gonna test run by subbing first, but are getting in there. I had Nicole set up 3 interviews for me down here today, so I really feel like that's a number we can whittle away at. We're at 21, I was like, I don't see how this is gonna happen, so we've made some progress. The biggest issue is that our sub-pool district-wide is already minimal, and I keep hiring these full-time employees, which only makes it more minimal. So that's a fear across the board, is how we are going to do that. So we're looking at some creative ways to try to help with that, because people are gonna be gone or need to be gone, and I would ever for that, so. But one step at a time, I guess.
Okay, we'll move on to educational technology report.
Guys, any questions?
I know we're kind of getting the pinch on chips, or freshman laptops are gonna be.
Yeah, we happened to buy refurbished under the Emergency Connectivity Fund, ESSER type money. We had bought new laptops for the 8th graders. Those are temporarily going to be freshman laptops. And then as soon as these other devices come in, which we expect sometime in early September, then we'll go through a transition period and get the freshmen their laptops, and then we'll rotate those back to the middle school. So that was the best. We expected a June 5th delivery, and just like everything else, we've sat and waited.
Is the Blue Interactive Playground, is that installed already?
It is installed. We got a couple of pieces left
Pretty neat.
to get a couple pieces we gotta figure out now that they've got it installed. But they did a little bit with it last week, and I don't know, Darla may have had a crash party up there, I'm not sure.
I knew they had one, but I didn't get invited to it.
But yes, that's gonna be really exciting, both for physical education and the after-school program.
Another great way to tie those two together, right? I mean, have the education and the PE and
Yeah,
interaction going on, that's cool.
We'll see if we can get a demonstration when we do our
when we do the tour.
retreat,
Yeah,
because it was pretty impressive when they were doing the install.
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking.
and the only other thing we did, and I think, I don't know if I put that in there, Nikki Kelly, who many of you may know, Nikki is gonna be our new assistive technology para at the elementary school. And so she was at Enrollment, and so we threw her right in the deep end, and she got started. She's been real involved. She was at the elementary school this past year and got involved with Shobi and so forth, and so I think she'll be a natural fit. We're looking forward to having her join the team.
questions or comments for educational technology report? Pretty good information. Move to superintendent's report.
And these numbers, again, the enrollment chart there, again, these numbers, I was able to get the information from our building office staff this morning, so I wasn't able to get these over the weekend added. But enrollment, and I'll echo the same sentiment with enrollment, the first 2 hours was just chaos. I mean, it was massive, busy, and everybody handled it terrific. I mean, when I say chaos, that's not right, it was just busy, I'll just say it's busy, but they handled it terrific, and it just, like I said, people, if you wanted to get in and get out, you had a little line in your first 2 hours, and then after that, it was, I timed people regularly. If you wanted to just go in and do your, if you had your work done ahead of time, you were out in 10 minutes, so it was really a good situation. Again, the enrollment numbers are there. I didn't have a chance to dive into individual grade levels, but I did check. Last year, our preliminary count was 815, so it's very similar. And again, who knows with a few ins and outs, but I didn't get a chance to look at the specific grade levels, but 815 was our preliminary number last year, so. First day of school again is coming up here quick for kids on the 19th. We did have the 16th, we have 16th scheduled for the beginning kickoff in service. Dr. Watson is going to be here to do kind of keynote address, which is going to be wonderful. Then he's going to host that community event, the Kansas Can Community Event. Board members are welcome. Anybody in the community is welcome that wants to come and just give their input. It's really going to be like a community town hall type event. He's going to give some information, but he really wants to have input from patrons. Again, just local people here. They are shooting for at least 100. That's the idea, is for hopefully to have at least 100 people there, and hopefully we'll have even more. So staff, I've indicated to staff that they can join us for this event if they would like to. If they want to, they got some trainings that they can do via video, online trainings. I've given them the trainings ahead of time. If they want to do it on their own, they can do it. If they want to do it during that 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock time frame, they can. Or if they want to join us for the community town hall type meeting with Dr. Watson, they can. So anyway. And we did have new teachers today, first day with new teachers. That went really well. We had 9 in attendance. We had 5 that have connections locally to us here, and 4 that are just, we brought them in from outside of Coffee County, so that's a good group to have. And first day went well. The second day we'll be with Doug and Craig and Courtney for some training, and then we'll have them here for lunch downtown at Vinnie's Sisters. Have Jean Mary and Jim Stuckey do a little bit of local knowledge information from those 2 veteran Coffee County natives here, and we'll take them on a little tour downtown and show them some places that they may want to be aware of. So anyway, so that's new staff again tomorrow for their second day. So, and then I guess the last thing on my report, I've shared with you information, and again, these are suggestions, recommendations from Dr. Jeff Sloyer and Lindsay Payer at the Health Department for just some things to consider. They are not mandates. Again, school boards still retain local control over decision making, but they did share some thoughts and some ideas as we move forward for our plans, again, related to health-related scenarios in the district. So, having said that, I don't know if you have any questions or comments on that first document there, the Coffee County School Plans document.
I read over it. It all looks fine. I do have a question over maybe the wording in the vaccination section. Says students age 12 and over are encouraged to speak with their physician about receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And I'll ask Matt, if you encourage a 12-year-old to talk to their physician, do they know what you're talking about?
No.
That doesn't make sense to me either. Maybe they should talk to their parents about it, but having a 12-year-old or 13-year-old, 14-year-old be encouraged to talk to their physician doesn't make sense to me. They should, and I don't think we should be telling students to talk to their physicians. Without talking to their parents first anyway. I think they should go talk to their parents about what they think is best for them and go forward. So I'd kind of like to change that line a little bit. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. I would encourage everyone to get the vaccine, but everyone's opinion about that is their own, and they can move forward with how they want to do that. That's not our board's decision to tell people to do it, but it's out there.
Right.
Another question I have is about vaccine clinics in the school. I've seen some school down in southeast Kansas did a vaccine clinic. I don't know if it says that that's not gonna happen in the school at this time. I don't know if that's been something that's been optioned in the future, or we haven't talked about it, or I think we should do better for our kids in our district, to try to get them accessibility to that vaccine if they want it, and traveling to Lebo twice with a 12-year-old can be difficult.
I don't wanna say too much and overpromise, but so Coffee Health System, the hospital and the clinic has discussed offering that vaccine, and specifically it has to be Pfizer, because that's what's approved for 12 and up, the rest have to be 18. So once our construction is under control, the clinic, CCMC, is moving in that direction to be able to start offering that vaccine. So hopefully it won't be quite as long of a jaunt to go and get that vaccine, and of course, there could be open discussion about potentially coming to the schools to give that vaccine. You need parental consent. There are some things in the emergency use authorization as far as having emergency equipment immediately available if there is a reaction when the vaccine's administered. So those are just some hurdles to talk through and work through. But I think it could be a potential moving forward if that's something that the school would like to do as well. So.
And I don't want to speak for Lori Herman, but I felt like she was more in favor of going that route than her being responsible, because she's not under a physician's
Well, the hospital,
directorate.
the health system got a grant to be able to provide vaccines and stuff. So that's what we're working on right now. It's just the construction is a problem right now, so.
Yeah.
No,
So one of the things with the construction piece in the clinic, you'll see our registration area is completely remodeled, but there's also a vaccination room that's right off the waiting area. So we're just waiting to be able to utilize that.
good information.
And if we need to, we sure can look to, we'd be happy to partner in regards to the school if needed. I know the rec center started out as a vaccine place, and then the Burlington, is it the Baptist?
Christian
Church, thank you, Christian Church, just west of the high school was a vaccination spot as well, so.
I think Sam will be reaching out to you guys probably.
Sure, okay. Good thoughts.
That was mine. Everything else in there looks good. I mean, looks like masks are gonna be required. There's some information about it on transportation that is kind of out of our control with grant funding and being on school transportation. Looks like a mask will be required at that time, but that only goes right now through September 18th, is that right? 13th, September 13th. So, but like the continuation with cleaning and following quarantine protocol with the diseases.
We have one question on under the quarantine tab. If they are required to quarantine, but then they can do the antigen test, how does that work for the kids? It says that they can take the test and still go to school during their quarantine. Who's providing that test, and where's that done?
I wouldn't say, I know we are not doing antigen testing here in the school district, and also that would probably be through the health department or through the hospital is what I guess I would expect.
Yeah, that's what, so, the last sentence of that quarantine says CDHC will provide the test consent forms and train school personnel to perform the on-site antigen testing.
So we may end up getting asked to do some testing, on-site testing, possibly.
And that was the other thing with
Yeah.
Lori's only hesitation, she's not overseen by a physician, so she's
Yep.
nervous to, but
Yeah, I don't wanna ask anybody to do something.
It's about like doing a pregnancy test. So.
I think that's a good option. If a kid is in close contact with this different school, as long as he
Right.
passes the, not passes the test, but shows nothing to that.
The best learning environments in school, and everything we can do to get them in there is.
Yeah, I read that and I was happy about it.
So yeah, we'll need either, I don't know, some clarification on who's gonna be providing that training and then administration there, cause, I mean, a lot of the stuff's touchy with administrating, tests and vaccines and stuff, so. We don't want, nor to do anything she's not gonna do.
Correct.
and I don't want to speak on her behalf completely, but I think that it's something that would warrant a lot more conversation and
Absolutely.
When we got this information, we did have Lori Herman join us with administrators and directors for a discussion on this information. And quite honestly, this information from Dr. Sawyer and Lindsay Payer both, is pretty much, I guess, what we were hoping was going to transpire for the most part. You know, again, we feel, like I say, pretty fortunate that we are not in a real hot spot right now. I think the last information we have is that there's 10 active cases. We've heard 10 active cases right now out of a county of approximately around 8,500, if I'm not mistaken. So that's really, like I say, we're very fortunate. So the things that we're doing here, or what they suggested or recommended for the most part, are kind of those things, again, that we're looking to do and what we were doing all along. I don't know if you have any questions. We can talk a little bit more about the transportation piece, because like I said, we got that information Thursday at 12:30. Administrative director said in
That's
on
what
the
I was
Zoom meeting.
gonna ask you,
So,
if they wrote this before,
yes.
so it's not left up to the local school boards?
Yes, you're right.
The transportation piece, that is correct. That became a federal mandate. So that, we got this information from Dr. Sawyer and Lindsay Payer on Tuesday afternoon, had our meeting Wednesday, and then we got an email, I got an email from Dr. Watson saying, there's a special Zoom meeting on Thursday, please attend. And so that's when I got all the administrators together and directors together to share what was coming down the pipe. And then that's when we were told about the busing situation, or transportation. I'm gonna call it busing. It's transportation in any school vehicle has become a federal mandate to wear masks, is what they're telling us.
Have you had a chance to talk to any other districts? I know it was a little short notice when I visited that. What are they saying?
Talked to Don Blum in Anderson County, and Don and his board, like I say, they're mask optional as well, like we are.
Except for that.
Except for that, yes. And I would say all of us, when we heard this, I don't know if I'm speaking for you guys, but I would say we were surprised and we're like, okay, this is not what we were expecting. Because again, we felt like local control would be in place for this. This was a surprise to everybody. And while we feel like, again, we feel like we can be mask optional in our schools. And again, whether we feel like transportation mask optional or not, this is a federal mandate. In the Zoom meeting, it was made clear to us that there is the possibility that we could lose federal funds if we do not follow that federal mandate.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. So do you remember back when Trump was president and he threatened to pull federal funds from schools if they didn't open? And they said he couldn't do it. It takes Congress to do that. So I'm thinking to myself, Congress is, for the most part, dysfunctional. They're not gonna pull our funding if we decide not to completely enforce a mandatory mask mandate. They don't have the authority. I mean, they just, I don't see it happening. But what I do see happening is just morphing into the same thing that we had last year. I just see that happening.
In what way, I guess?
For pretty soon, we're all gonna be forced to wear masks again,
Well, nothing we did.
like we did last year.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't, we did that for a week last year when we didn't have to. And that was for logistics. I mean, once the decision got to our local board to wear masks or not, we as a board made a decision to wait a week so we could logistically figure it out, and then we removed the masks. So I'd say we have the.
That's not the way that happened. You put on a mandatory mask for several months. Cause I left the meeting when you did that.
That's because there was a mandate out there from the state that said that when you're on school buildings in an institution, you had to wear a mask.
Okay.
And so that was.
So it wasn't just a week, it was.
You were saying it was out of local control then?
We didn't have local control of that mask mandate at that time. What I'm saying is when the mask mandate came to local control, at the board meeting that we had up at the middle school, or the high school, excuse me, we listened to the concerns of our students and we removed that mask mandate after we had a little logistical time in there. So I think we have precedent set that we've looked at what we've done here, and we've only enforced either what was forced on us or what made sense at the time. And I don't think we're gonna backslide into that unless our
I don't
health
know,
officials tell us that way.
you can't trust people that don't read the signs. And
Well, I'm trusting Dr. Sawyer. He's given us this information that says we don't need to wear masks.
I don't think he pushed our mandatory school mask deal last year.
Well, I don't think we're gonna just ignore the rules that are put upon us either.
Well, I don't know why we can't.
Well, I don't know, I mean, we have rules that we
Well,
have to
there's
follow.
rules, but sooner or later, when they don't make sense, you have to stand up a little bit.
I think
Or
you're,
if they tell you to jump off a cliff, because there's $1 billion at the bottom, are you gonna do that?
I think you're right, I don't think that
If
they'll
it's a
probably
2-foot
take
cliff.
I don't think that they'll take our funding away, I would be surprised if they did. But regardless, it's a risk that I'm not willing to take, because I think that would be more detrimental to our students than just having them wear a mask on the bus to school.
I read you another recent article from the CDC, and this is just mind-boggling. CDC admits COVID vaccines don't work. And they did this in a roundabout way. They're updating testing guidance. If a fully vaccinated person has a known exposure to someone that's conferred with COVID-19, they have to be tested over the next 3 to 5 days. And they've got to remain in quarantine for 14 days. So that leads you to believe that, do they not trust the COVID vaccine to work? Why would you have to start testing an individual that's been exposed? They're supposed to work.
Well, I guess that we're lucky that we have control of those decisions here right now.
That needs to be left up to the individual. But why would the CDC recommend tests if these vaccines are supposed to work? And that gets back to why do they recommend masks? I mean, the whole thing is just so upside down.
I think the part, again, for me, is in regards to the funding piece, and I kind of feel like Stacy mentioned, it's hard because we have an ESSER two funds, 372,000 approximately, that we've got allocated towards doing some really good things for students and technology and our staff, and utilizing money that's federal government money that we wouldn't have to necessarily utilize from local funds and our local taxpayers. And then we've got a third wave, the ESSER three money of over 876,000, somewhere in that 872,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, that we can do, like, for example, work from bigger project standpoint, like maybe some HVAC upgrades, because they're now allowing us to do that instead of buying like these in-room air purifiers that are like $100 purifiers or $200 purifiers that won't last and stand the test of time. They're allowing us potentially to look at larger projects that would make bigger sense to bring in fresh air with better like HVAC systems. And if we utilize those funds, then we may not have to utilize our capital outlay funds for those types of projects, which then we can do even more from. So
Well, I hear what you're saying.
yeah, it's hard to have a scenario where we have over $1 million potentially that could, and I'm not saying they will or they won't, I don't know if they will or they won't, but it's like Stacy mentioned, how do you run that risk?
Well, I feel like we're being held hostage because of money. You know, I think that's.
Unfortunately, I think we all feel that.
But it also says that if you don't, it's a violation of federal law, and you're subject to penalties under that federal law. I mean, I don't wanna be
Yeah,
These guys are-
encouraging
These guys
our
are breaking
students
federal law
to
every day. I
to
mean,
break a federal law.
I really don't wanna answer the people that's sitting out there and saying, how come you guys lost all that money? Because I mean, that's.
well, they're hearing this right now.
Yeah, sure, and I'm saying right now, I'm kind of with Stacy, I'm not willing to take that risk right now, I mean.
I think you have to continually evaluate what they're asking us to do, and is it reasonable? And are we doing a good job for our students or not by following it? There might become a point to where following them is detrimental to our students, and at that time we'll cross that bridge. But I think this is a small price to pay to keep our federal funding coming. Bus routes are maybe 30 minutes to an hour. coming in and back, I mean, out of a 8-hour day, that's pretty minimal. I really like that we're staying optional in in the schools, so I think it's a small price to pay, but I do think you have to constantly evaluate what's coming down from news outlets, the CDC and that kind of thing, and evaluate whether it's promoting what we want to promote for our kids.
Again, I think we feel very comfortable what's happening again in Coffee County. We feel comfortable about doing the mask optional, kind of like, you know, what Dr. Thorpe's mentioning. Give the people the choice. You either wear a mask or you don't wear the mask. You either get a vaccine or you don't get a vaccine. You're kind of back to that personal choice. But when they do a federal law, you want to be respectful of those in power. Whether you agree or you don't agree, you kind of have to follow along, especially when there are some serious funds attached. That's hard to say no. I'm hopeful that with that September 13, I'm hoping that that's a month that there will be, and maybe we can share our information with the state saying, listen, we are still in a very, you know, we're not in a hot spot, we're in a very good position with our COVID situation. Can we, maybe, I don't know if there's a way to petition the federal government in some way, shape, or form, or if they remove it altogether.
So September 13th, they're gonna remove it from the busing?
Well, they say that is a date that's in place here. Now, will they continue? As we know, with certain scenarios, they put a date in place and then it just continues. I can't guarantee that September 13th is gonna be we don't have to wear masks in school transportation.
It's set to expire.
Right.
It's set to expire.
They can.
You just put it in.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, and I don't know, is this what requires you to wear a mask on airplanes? It's kind of the same, or
Yeah,
public
It
transportation?
it is.
Yeah, so this may have
Public
kind of
transportation.
essentially been in effect, but not instituted in the same realm with school transportation, is that?
It was actually put into a place, if I'm not mistaken, if I look at the document, it was in May where this was in place. Let me look here and see if I can find it. I think
The
it was,
overarching one,
It's
it's
yes.
started, I think, January.
those.
Yeah, talks about all
Transportation
The
system.
TSA, it says effective date was May 12th, 2021, and expiration date September 13th, 2021. So it's been in place, but, again, we haven't had to deal with it, schools haven't been in session, so, and they just, I guess they just shared this with us as of this past Thursday.
So, that's the information we have.
So have
on
we
that.
hauled any kids around this summer?
We have,
So
and
we've been breaking the law.
we have, I'm trying to think how many we have, some, but not a lot. And again, this has been brought to our attention Thursday. And so it was not on our radar until Thursday. It was local control, at least what we thought in schools, and then it was brought to our attention on the transportation piece. And I think it's because it just got closer to actually you're transporting, you know, a larger, you're gonna transport 30, 40, 50 kids in a bus potentially. And, you know, your airflow in there is not great, your seating sometimes in there is not great. As far as 3 foot to 6 foot spacing and airflow, that's, I think, the biggest issue. So.
And there's nothing here, there's not, I guess there's no motion for that one or anything, so, but
No.
conversations were great, I appreciate everyone bringing anything up. Is there any other parts of this that we'd like to talk about? There's spacing indoors with, you know, less than 6 feet or maybe 3 feet. No temperature screening, wash hands, just good generic hygiene. I think we need to kind of answer the question about antigen testing that Ron had, that's, kind of get some clarification there.
I'm gonna talk to Lori.
Talk to Lori about comfort level there. And then maybe change add some information we got about the vaccinations. encourage them to talk to their parents about it, I think would be more
Yeah.
better suited.
I think that's true.
I mean, 12-year-olds aren't gonna read this anyway, but
Just add in their parents with 12-year-olds or older are encouraged.
yeah, that would be good.
Good. I've got those notes there and we'll work on that information.
Does anybody have any other questions about school reopening plans?
Where is this gonna be published then?
Well, we're gonna work on getting, I wanna get information out after the board meeting here. I wanted to obviously, discuss the busing piece because that's the biggest information that we wanna get out to parents. Parents may decide that they will bring kids into school rather than have kids wear masks, and that's possible. Or at least they'll be prepared. We do have masks that will provide, most people have their own masks and probably, I'm sure they've kept them just in case. And so, but we'll still have those available if needed. We want to get this information out as soon as possible to parents. So we'll do the website, we'll probably do an Everbridge as well and get it out via Twitter, social media, as much as possible, as fast as possible, so. Good question, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to board reports. Anybody has any other information to share at this time? Okay.
If there are any topics that you would like to have for the administrative retreat, just send them to myself and Christy, and we'll work on getting that prepared for those 2 evenings, so.
And move on to contract approvals and appointments. Approval substitute bus driver, classified pay. This just ties into our change in the minutes earlier. Move to amend the Move to amend the July 12th, 2021 substitute bus driver pay in the amount of $20.38.34 and approve substitute bus driver pay in the amount of $20.38.
Second.
Anybody vote on your computers? Motion passes 6-0. Handbook approvals, there's 5 handbooks there, lots of information. I think the changes were marked in red, most of them. Very few changes to look like. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding handbooks?
I'll make a motion to approve the handbooks as presented.
Second.
Motion is second to approve handbooks as presented. Everybody vote on your computers. Motion passes 6-0. Next item is the enrollment fees and meal prices. Some of these are to align, is that correct, with recovery monies?
Yes. With the free meals pieces, and again, the enrollment fees and the meal prices, we had to wait till we actually got the official information from, the FDA? The FDA on the information there, and so we did get that information. You see a chart there for prices, and Christy, I don't know if you got anything else you want to add on that?
The main thing here is that the adult meal prices went up. We're getting a larger reimbursement on the kids' meals. If we didn't meet the minimum of the adult food price, for example, and we kept it lower, we would have to make up the difference out of our general fund. And we opted not to do that, it's under $5.
How did we finally end up last year on those liquid accounts? Was it, those got paid off by somebody, is that right?
We had help from some local groups that did help us out with the delinquent accounts, yes. And because of the meal situation, you guys have seen this in the financial piece, because we are able to feed kids free again this year. There were a number of families that had really substantial amounts built up in their accounts. We ended up doing petty cash check payments back to them because we felt like we needed to, that's their money. And they had put that money in last year, and they don't need it last year, they don't need it this year, so we made payments back to them to get their balances back to zero. The parents can add, they can put money on their kids' account if they want additional, like the a la carte items, they can do that and add to their account, but we felt like we need to get those back to zero because there were some, parents' accounts that had hundreds of dollars in there, so we went ahead and did that. But yes, it has to deal with the adult meal prices. You have to charge a certain amount, or we have to reimburse that through the general fund. And still, again, like Christy mentioned, the lunch for adult is still under $5, and it's a good meal. And the breakfast is again at $2.65, which again is under $3 for breakfast, and it's a very good meal. Diana S. and her crew do a wonderful job. And we were able to reduce the enrollment fees just because we feel like that our current cash balance in the textbook fee line is good enough, and we can give our parents and families a break. It's not a lot, it's $5 less, but if you have 2 or 3 kids, it's a little bit of something. So we try to obviously look to do that, and that's helpful for our families.
Motion to approve enrollment fees and meal prices for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Second. Okay, everybody in favor or opposed, vote on your computer. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to a vehicle bid, dealing with our carpool and vehicle acquisition.
Correct. We currently, right now, and I'll share this information with you, we have 3 cars in our fleet right now. I'm not talking about vans, but cars. 2012 Chevy Impala has 92,302 miles. That's a car that's usually down here at the central office that we use when we go to different trainings and stuff like that, or if the bus barn, they need it for different trips, they come down and get it as well. We have a 2017 Ford Fusion we bought a couple of years ago, a really nice vehicle, 30,707 miles, and then a 2018 Chevy Malibu has 24,805 miles. Those are the 3 cars that we have in our fleet right now, again, that are not vans. So we really are short on cars in our fleet right now. I'm talking with Brad Griffin. All 3 of these cars were used for driver's education this summer. Again, we had some staff that were going for trainings or for in-services and stuff like that. That 1 or 2 staff members, they were taking a van because we didn't have any cars to send them in. So that's not the ideal situation, is to send a van with 1 or 2 people in there. This is a vehicle that's kind of in between, again, a car and a van. It has the capability to seat 7. I don't know if I want to be the 7th passenger in that vehicle because it's going to be a little tight in there, but I think it has the comfort and the ability to seat comfortably 5 to 6 people. And it's a real good vehicle. It's a 1-owner car that Gromati has on the lot that they bid. They were the only, we received 1 bid, and that was the only bid we received. And this, like I say, this car will help meet some needs with, like I say, that auto piece, but also with if we need to send 5, maybe 6 people potentially, it would be able to be used for that, as well as it'll help us with the driver's education during the summer, and we can use some of our capital outlay funds as well as driver's ed money to purchase this vehicle. So, and with the vehicle shortage right now, we would like to acquire another transit van. A 10-passenger van, but we don't know. Cromati has told us that you really can't even put in a purchase for a new van until 2022. And he said, I don't know when that's gonna happen. That's kind of with anybody in the dealers just around here. So a little fearful that, again, our fleet is a little bit lacking, as well as we're fearful we don't know when we're gonna get possibility of the autos that we would like to, potentially have, like a 10-passenger van. So anyway, with that, I don't know if you have any questions.
So was this budgeted for this year?
It was, yes. We had a car budgeted, or a vehicle budgeted at about right under $20,000. This is a little bit more. But the reason being, again, cars have taken a jump. Everett indicated to me that this one he bid was probably about $3,000 or $4,000 less, maybe 10, 12 months ago. You're looking, again, used cars and new cars have just taken a jump.
What's the mileage on this car?
It has about 65,000 miles, one owner. And it's stickered for, I think, if I remember right, about $47,000 brand new.
Yeah, it's on Cromati's website for $27,498. So, they're just kind of pretty small.
Other questions that you may have?
Are these other 3 vehicles still gonna work good for the driver's ed program?
We feel these 3 that we have now are very reliable, and we can send these out of town at any point in time. All of these vehicles, as a matter of fact, administrators, directors, they want to drive the Malibu or the Fusion, probably more so than the Impala, because it has some nicer amenities. It has a USB plug-in. It has just a little bit. It drives a little nicer. It gets better gas mileage too. But anyway, so those are 3 that are very reliable, responsible, trustworthy vehicles. The 2 that we ended up selling this summer. They wouldn't pass inspection. We had 2 vehicles. I just don't feel comfortable having those in our fleet. If somehow, some way they end up getting sent out and we have a staff member that's stranded on the road, I don't. So we got rid of anything that we would not pass inspection and would only be like an adult type, a driver, if you will. We wanted the vehicle to be able to carry not only adults but also kids safely.
Motion to approve the bid from Cromati Chevy for a 2016 Chevy Traverse in the amount of $26,198.
Second. All in favor or opposed, vote on your computer.
Do you remember what caused the other ones not to pass inspection?
They had mechanical issues that were going to cost too much to repair. Like, for example, we had a 2010 Chevy Impala with 134,000 miles. It was showing an check engine light soon. To be able to fix that with the dashboard and the technology piece, it was going to push, over $1,500.
I was just curious why that didn't pass.
Good question.
Motion passes 6-0.
You gotta look out for those kiddos. And the people driving that.
No issues for executive session. Move on to closing items for debriefing. I want to thank everybody for their discussion on things that are very important to our district and our school and our kids. And every opinion is very much appreciated for the discussion, so I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys coming
Dave was at community conditioning,
Hey,
so he
fine
was,
right here.
he was rocking rock and roll with the kids.
I got can.
I can tell you it was hot.
Any other questions, comments before we go? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
The dioramas here are from the summer school, groups, they did some different,